talked about, and his speech was very eloquent, and I'm sure tonight all those who are married will be reflecting, and those who are not married will be reflecting more. Don't stick to your culture, stick to your religion. Am I right, Sheikh?
More or less.
Good. Jazakallah. Any questions? Please feel free to ask. Dr. Nawab.
You mentioned marriage, and I think most non-Muslims will disagree with what you said about marriage. But the reality of the wider community we live in is that most people are not married. The more children, I think, the statistics show that the more children are born outside marriage. The argument is that they're being brought up in relationships which are not sanctified by marriage. But they're loving and they have everything that you've said. And also they are same-sex couples who are bringing up children. Again, in a loving, nurturing, caring environment. How would you respond as a Muslim to what's happening around us?
Okay, you wanted to start with a difficult question first.
Sorry, ask you this one. This is an easy one after.
No problem. It's a job of a doctor to ask difficult questions, I understand. I'm not sure which part of what I've said my non-Muslim friends would disagree with, but that's okay.
I said that they would agree with
they would agree, okay. So in the second part of your question, which I understood very clearly, about having a loving environment and bringing up children in non-married environment as well as in the same-sex relationship. The second one is easy to answer for me. Same-sex relationship. As a Muslim, it's in the Quran and in the teachings of the Prophet that homosexuality in Islam is not allowed. That's what Islam says. And I believe in Islam wholeheartedly. I've submitted to this way and I'm not going to change my way for that. There are two narratives today in the world. One narrative says homosexuality is okay, no problem. Another narrative says it's not okay. And both sides are entrenched in their view. They're not going to change their views. And I don't want to fight with you. What's the point of fighting? Because nobody's going to change their mind. Respect me for my view. I respect you for yours. No issue. You carry on in your way. I have the full right to criticize your way, just like you have the right to criticize mine. My criticism is children need both sets of parents, man and woman, to see how in nature procreation actually happens. When I say procreation, I mean the wider context of procreation. So a man and a woman coming together, their sexual relationship is private, but bringing up children, imparting knowledge of how to bring up, how to have life skills from a male and a female perspective is an essential part of what I call completing the process of knowledge. That's what Islam says, and this is what Islam considers to be the natural environment of fitrah. Now, if that's a problem for the current narrative in the society where homosexuality has been accepted as acceptable and normal, I cannot go around fighting with people. I can only say my view, and that's what I'm doing. I'm saying Islamic narrative is very simple with respect to people, but Islam doesn't recognize that environment to be a complete environment for a child's growth. Number one. Number two, psychologically speaking, a child needs the emotional growth both of the female and the masculine and the male perspective. I have a son and a daughter, and they're very different as I see them grow up. Very different. And they both take different parts of our being, my wife and I, in a way that I could not have fathomed before until I had children. I could not have imagined. I could not imagine my child coping by himself or herself alone with the mother or the father, or two mothers or two fathers. I cannot imagine them coping in that environment psychologically. When I say coping, I also mean to be able to grow fully with what I call complete emotional intelligence. The third and the final point is, I need to teach my children values of life, respect, values of life of tolerance, values of life of peace and submission to the peaceful way of life, which in my view is Islam. And part of my narrative is, even if I disagree with my fellow human being, I must respect them for who they are. I will teach that to my children. So I don't see a problem in coming to an agreement where we agree to disagree. Now, can single parents on their own in a broken home or without marriage build up children? Two people who have come together, their commitment to one another, if it's legally recognized, and if they have legal recourse to any pitfalls, then I already think they're married. Whether you call it married or not married is no big debate. You can call it oogu boogu if you like, as far as I'm concerned. What does the term mean to you? What does that term mean to me? It's a term given by people. Our English word is marriage, okay? So if two people have committed and there is a legal recourse, then they are already married in my language. I don't need to worry about them. The problem I see in the predominant discourse is that many people are reacting to the religious element of marriage. And that's because of their bad experience with religion. And I don't justify that at all. A bad experience is bad experience. And there are also problems with the vow that they take that makes them feel hypocritical. You know, until death do us apart. I'm sorry, that's a lie. And I've said to my Christian friends, to my priest friends and friends from all denominations, please change the last sentence of your vow. Not till death do us apart. Until such time that we want to go apart, it's okay. In Islam, that's why marriage is okay, divorce is fine. And a lot of my Christian friends or secular friends say to me, the reason why we don't want to do a religious marriage is because I would make that promise which I'll break, I know. And I don't want to break a promise. So there are many reasons, small and big. I've given the examples of both. As far as I'm concerned, if two people are committed together and there is a legal recourse for them, it's enough for me from the secular world. As a Muslim, of course, I would go through the sanctification of marriage in Islam. But I wouldn't shove it down anyone's throat. I think I've answered both the questions for you. I hope that's enough.
What does Islam or the Quran says about divorce? And if some person does divorce and if they want to get back together again or get married again, I know it's another difficult one for you. So it's how would the Quran and Islam allow for them to get to be married again?
Well, for the first part of the question, I can answer it easy and quite quickly. What does Islam say about divorce? Divorce is allowed. If a man and a woman are not getting on well, they should exhaust everything possible to try and repair a marriage. If they can't repair a marriage after trying everything, then they're allowed to divorce. But don't press the D word first, or D button first, I say. Go through everything. What does it mean? Getting mediation if possible, professional help from the counselors if there is a need for it, getting help and therapy. I have seen so many people. I remember a couple very vividly. Both of them were head teachers of 2 schools. Married, have been married for 20 years. Now they couldn't cope with one another at all, so they came to see me for marriage counseling. And I started seeing them. They were very difficult in terms of clients, very difficult clients. In other words, tough, hard-going, very difficult to change. They have had their ways for all their lives. Head teachers, can you imagine? Anyway, after 7 months of counseling every week, once a week, guess what? They came to my room one day with a big, massive box of chocolate and a bouquet of flowers. And I said to myself, okay, that's very nice. They must have bought it for another. They said, no, we bought it for you. Why have you bought it for me? We have made up our mind. We're going to stay together. So if they had pressed the D button first when the trouble began, they would not have explored what actually caused them the trouble and repaired it and gone better. That's why in Islam, Allah is talking about reflective process. So when something goes wrong in your marriage, reflect by yourself, with others, and through with the professionals. So that what is going wrong, you can repair. Every marriage goes through ups and downs. There is, according to psychologists, there is a 7-year itch, which means up and then down, up and then down. Every 7 years there is a trouble in a marriage. It's not trouble, it's just got bored of one another. You just need to find a new way of communicating. You renegotiate, fight for a few days and then start again. What I say is 7-year itch. So marriage allows divorce. There's a saying of the Prophet which says, amongst the permissible act that is most hated by God is divorce. That is to discourage people from pressing the D button first. But you get the first part. Second part, how do you get divorced people to come together? Please speak to your local imam rather than me here because it's a bit complex. I don't want to give you a straightforward answer and then get shot by lots of local imams saying, what did he say that for? So I'm going to leave that to you to negotiate with somebody local who knows about divorce process in Islam and knows about how to reconcile the two together. But divorce is perfectly allowed if things are not working out.
That's a very diplomatic answer.
Yes. So.
Why do you think there are such low levels of emotional intelligence in Muslim communities? Do you think that's a reflection of something going on in broader society, or is it something that's distinctive within Muslim communities?
I think it's something broader than just the Muslim community. It's the celebrity obsession culture that we have. It's the Big Brother type of program that we love. It's the constant self-gratification that we like, rather than express our love and sympathy for somebody else. It's about me, and me. When we have such me, and me culture, your emotional idea is retarded. When I say retarded, I mean it's not real any longer. You live through a prism of an existence that is not real. You think and you fantasize the realities of other people. And in all of that, what is destroyed first is your own emotional intelligence. So you don't know what is good for you any longer. You don't know what is good for your heart any longer. You don't know what is good for your partner any longer, because you think somebody else's happiness is better, and therefore you must emulate that happiness, and in that process you lose yours. That's number one. Number two, Muslim communities, emotional intelligence and lack of it is also further exacerbated by the fact that Asians especially have created taboo around emotions. Ask yourself why. So what's wrong? This is a very funny story I'll share with you. My mother and my father, on our first Eid after I got married, my wife is Hungarian, European Hungarian, white English, or white European. So on our first Eid, we were all giving hugs to one another. My first Eid after marriage. My father and my mother, they were not hugging one another, of course. So my wife was a bit shocked by this. So she said to my mum, come. So grabbed my mum's hand, took her to my dad, and said, give her a hug, Dad. Dad looked at her thinking, what kind of a mad girl is this? So he said to me in Bangla, what kind of a girl have you married? Now I said to my wife, they have never in my entire life, I've never seen my dad touch my mum. I'm 42. I've never seen my mother and my father touch one another. Accidental touch is okay, but anything else, don't do that. Now this creates a huge imbalance in my mind, because subconsciously, that's what I'm used to, not touching my spouse. And I have to go out of my way to make sure I'm regularly in touch with my emotion and my affection, so that I'm not mimicking my parents, but I could, and I know I've done it when I have not been conscious of it. Now that's what's registered in my head, right? I've never ever heard my father saying to me, I love you. I've never heard my father saying, I love you to my mom. I've never seen them kiss, of course, no way. The world will come to an end if they had kissed. So how do I relate to the opposite sex in the right way when I do get married? I am completely unaware of the right way. I can do a little bit because I've seen my friends and peer groups and media and television on the screen certain behavior. But I cannot undo my childhood, which is imprinted in the back of my being, and that's the way I behave with my wife. And that's why many men and many women become very wujud very quickly. First few months is very good, and then suddenly he or she resorts back to what is comfortable and the way they've seen their parents behave. So one of the biggest reasons why Muslim communities are emotionally not that intelligent, in my view, is because we Asians have created a taboo around affection and intimacy. Intimacy, please give me your hand, I'm not going to be intimate with you, go ahead. So holding his hand like this, as husband and wife, will never be done in public. Walking with the hands of my wife is never done in the Muslim community. It's rare. If somebody sees you, they'll frown at you. I remember one guy said to me, why are you holding my hand? I said to him, would you like me to hold that girl's hand? She's not married to me. He looked at me and said, well, I said, she's my wife, you know that. I'm walking around with my wife. He said, but you're the Imam of our mosque. He said to me, I feel embarrassed. I said to him, that's your problem, it has nothing to do with me. I have no problem in giving my wife. I gave my wife a hug at Euston Station as she was boarding a train. One brother, he looked at me and he went completely red instantly and he turned away. And after my wife had boarded the train and I came and said, are you okay? He goes to me, a bit embarrassing, isn't it? I said, embarrassing what? You're hugging your wife. I said, my wife is going somewhere, for God's sake. If I don't hug her, who should I hug? Because I don't hug my wife. I said, I'm really sorry. I wanted to say bichara, but I didn't. Which is a very sarcastic way of saying for you in Urdu and in local language. So emotional intelligence starts from the lack of teaching from the day we are born in our homes. Many of our parents would do this when we were younger, until about the age of 7. As soon as the onset of puberty becomes normal, the touching and contact becomes less and less and less. Have you seen the hugging syndrome that I've seen between parents and children? So when the children are young, they hug like this, right? As the children grow older, the hugs become wider and wider and wider, and it's just the heads that hug. Have you seen that? I saw it in a friend of mine, and I said to him, "What are you doing?" He said, "Your daughter. Why are you hugging her like that?" I was like, "She's grown up." "But she's your daughter." Just imagine what goes through the daughter's mind. "Oh, I'm no longer, my dad doesn't like to hug me anymore." Just psychological impact of that must be traumatizing. It is traumatizing. It has been traumatizing for me. So these are some of my observations. There has been no clinical studies done in my view. You must commission maybe a study in your department if you can. So maybe you should open up an MA program on this and get somebody to do this, because I believe this is one of the major reasons why Muslim families are breaking down in this country in a major way. Anyway, those are the 2 reasons. Dr. Masroor.
Sociologists, they explain this in the way that extended families are pragmatic, and there's no kind of emotional intelligence in extended families because you don't actually need emotions, you just need the job to be done. Functions, it's very functionalist. Whereas in a nuclear family, the only thing which is keeping the family together is the emotions, and that's why nuclear families are quite weak. If there's no emotion, then it falls apart. Do you think that's also the case with Muslim families because we come from an extended background?
Could be. It could be a factor that extended family background means we need less emotions, but I don't agree with that. I think in every environment you need emotions. In the Asian subcontinent, emotions are tied away at home, in the privacy and the depth of the darkness, and even in the depth of the darkness, in a room that is shared between 3 children and mum and dad, intimacy is very little, if at all. So I think there is a rather twisted idea, or not real, when they talk about the extended families. The extended families, the troubles it brings, because the emotions are not managed well, is unbelievable. It's like a ticking time bomb. It explodes on your face very often. But it also could be true that in the nuclear family, because the extended support isn't there, functionalities and emotions must all be borne by 2 people. It becomes more important that they more share their emotions so that they feel together. Maybe, but that's a good thing in my view. I'm not saying nuclear family is the only way, and I'm not saying extended family is the only way. I think it has to be middle ground somewhere. While nuclear family could be very lonely and depressing for creating a confident family, in my view, extended family, which is very interfering, could also be very burdensome. What's the medium ground? Well, that's what Islam proposes, in between the 2. Neither are correct if you take it that way. So while I agree in some elements, I also disagree with the other.
Thank you very much. I think it's time we should...
Hold on, take a couple of more questions and just dismiss them. One more over there. Lady there.
May I ask a light-hearted question?
Yes.
You gave 3 examples of where you've beaten your wife in Scrabble, in chess, in, was it badminton?
Yeah.
Surely there's something that she's beaten.
Oh, she does always.
I just wondered if you could
Yes. Oh, my wife is very good with languages. She's excellent in her creativity, and she's brilliant with maths. So whenever we're going shopping, she does all the calculations. She just takes my card and pays for it all before I know it's done and dusted. But she's very good in her own world. She's a fantastic writer. She's a brilliant friend to me. She's the mother of my children. I would have crumbled by now without her. So she brings more skills than I do. I just bring some skills where I'm good at. The only good skill I have, probably more than her, is I talk a lot. But I don't talk as much at home. I don't know whether you would be surprised. I don't say anything at home. And my wife is constantly pestering me, saying, "You talk for the world. Why aren't you talking at home?" So I say to her, "Now it's my turn to listen. Go ahead, you talk. I'm listening." And she will be talking away, and I'm sitting there listening for hours, no problem, without me having said many words. That works for us. So we have our complementary skills. It works.
I thought a balance was required.
Thank you very much. I think your wife has a question, right?
Yes, I was saying that you know.
Is it about him?
I dare not. So you talked a lot about husband and wife showing affection, but I think children need affection at every stage, you know. And I think parents of our generation and the older generation, we were not physical, we knew our parents loved us, but physical affection or showing affection was not there so much, just like in Victorian times here, And I think children need that emotional nourishment all the way through, plenty of it. And it doesn't mean that you're spoiling a child, That is a different thing, discipline is a different thing. But I think showing affection to a child is crucial, I think,
There's a saying of the Prophet which says, a man came to the Prophet and said, "O Prophet of God, I love that person." The Prophet said, "Did you tell him?" "No." "Go and tell him you love him." "I love you," said somebody. Can you imagine? That was the practice of the Prophet. That if you love somebody, go and tell them, because they don't know what's in your mind. You never know what is in the mind of the other person. But there is also a problem with the affection that we express in some ways. Some of us think the person who is expressing an emotion, a particular emotion to do with love, they want something. What does he want now? What does she want now? No, talking about affection and sharing it with the other must be without a desire to want something or interpret it to be a demand for something.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional, no, not love. Unconditional affection. Unconditional love is also a myth in some ways. But affection is very unconditional. I must show my affection to the person without anything want in return. Classically, I teach couple how to hug in my counseling. And it's hilarious. I tell you, it's funny, like tomorrow, as to how they hug, how silly their hugs are. And some of the couples would say, "Come on, you can't." "Of course I can go. Come on, let me teach you how to hug." So I can't, of course, hug her, but I can hug him. He's more uncomfortable. "Don't hug me like this, please." I'm saying, no, at a human level, learning how to hug. We've forgotten that. Because we haven't seen our primary caretakers do it well. Brothers and sisters hugging, friends hugging. I say to people, it is fine if, especially a family, unless the warmth and the touch is shared, affection is not shared. To finish off, let me just close my thoughts in a couple of sentences. I believe creating confident Muslim families isn't just a mantra that the Muslims should talk about. I think it should be shared by everybody. Muslims and non-Muslims, all of us should be sharing the idea of creating confident families, per se, generally. If we have confident families, stable families, strong families, our children will be ideal model citizens for tomorrow. Can you imagine a world where there is no need for our children? Our children are glued onto a machine constantly playing. I'm so grateful to my dad for not having a television at home. 6 of us, he brought us up. We had no TV, and still today in his house there is no TV. I'm so grateful to my dad for allowing my brain to grow without television, without that interference. We were playing continuously with everything that is possible, creative. So it's about it's about unleashing the inner potential of our children and creating a confident family that can do that safely and lovingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.